Hamas attacks, they don't stop, even though Israel is pounding Gaza with airstrikes and artillery strikes. Every time Hamas can find a rocket, they are lighting it up and sending it over the border. The U.S. State Department is urging Americans also to be aware that Lebanon is a dangerous place. It's like, really? Did the State Department have to tell me that? I think I probably figured that out, but thankfully they did tell Americans, get out of Lebanon. Now, Pam, here's the thing that I find interesting. They are telling Americans, get out of Lebanon, and they're paying for their flights, but they're looking at it as a loan. So if the U.S. government gets you out of Lebanon, which they're urging you to do, they're telling you, get on the plane, but you're going to owe us for the cost of the flight. Now, that may sound, well, you know, people put themselves there. I understand that. But here's maybe the part that rubs a little wrong. We're proposing to send another $75 billion to Ukraine, $6.9 million to research smart toilets, $477,000 to study transgender monkeys, $465,000 for casinos, for pigeons to study gambling. I can't even begin to think what that is all about. And $25,000 for Chinese surfers. And I wonder, are we going to make the Chinese surfers pay that money back? Are we going to make the transgender monkeys pay for the research on them? I don't think so. You would think that the primary purpose of the American government is to protect American citizens. If you have some in harm's way, so much so that you say, get out of the country, and you even say, we've got a flight, that it's sort of an insult to say, basically, we'll save your life for a cost. But that's what we're doing. Some really troubling things taking place in terms of how many people are coming across the border, but it's no longer just about how many. It's who they are. Watch.
Intel arm of CBP has a new bulletin out, and the headline is pretty alarming. It says in bold letters right at the top, foreign fighters of Israel-Hamas conflict may be encountered at southwest border. The Daily Caller got a copy of this material. It was distributed 3 days ago, and it's about Hamas, Hezbollah, or Islamic Jihad fighters exploiting the porous border to get into the U.S.
You know, it's really frightening when you think about how many sleeper cells could be active in the U.S. Yes. People that just walked right across. They're from Syria, they're from Lebanon, they're from Iran. They just come and mingle around, and they'll sit tight for a while. And then one day they'll be given orders, and they will carry out a savage attack on Americans like what we saw in Israel. And when that happens, I want someone to tell me how good and wonderful it is to have an open border. Let's see who will take responsibility for that. Speaking of border terrorists, we actually have some numbers that we know, thanks to the Customs and Border Patrol people. Watch.
This is what a policy looks like. Fiscal year 2019. And then you can draw a bright line with things changing in that policy and how it grew. Terror watch list. New president. Attempts to cross the border, and it is exploding.
It sure is. When you see those numbers, it's shocking. Yeah. And those are the ones that are on the terror list, and they're in the country. They may be living next to you. You may be in a store, and they're loading up their cart with probably groceries that you're buying for them. I hope you're enjoying that. Look over and say, you don't even have to say thank you. That's just crazy. The most amazing thing I've seen, maybe the most disgusting thing I've seen, is Rashida Tlaib, who is a anti-Semitic lunatic. All I can say, she's a lunatic. Why the people of her district in Michigan send her is beyond me. But in a raging speech she made out at the Capitol, she actually said she's ashamed of the colleagues who stand with Israel and against the murderous savages of Hamas. Watch.
But as an American, not just as a member of the United States Congress, I am ashamed. I am ashamed that they're saying, not yet, maybe next week.
I'm ashamed of her. I'm ashamed that anybody elected her to Congress. And I would love to think that maybe sane people in Michigan, in her district, would say, that's enough. We just can't take that anymore. She's not the only one. You know, other members of the so-called squad, Ilhan Omar, who is from Minnesota, is equally anti-Semitic. And in a press conference, she just loses her cool because somebody's asking how many people does it take to be killed and tortured from these terrorists. And all she can do is forget about the people who are massacred, the children, the women, the elderly. She's only concerned about people in Gaza who are in harm's way because Hamas keeps them there. Watch this reaction from her.
Another question. Why don't you want
a question from anyone else?
That burned, tortured, killed their babies and children and still have them hostage? Why don't you want the Israelis to go after the terrorists that did that?
How many more killings is enough for you? Is it 1,000 more?
And she goes on from there and then finally just walks away. But I just found her answer disgraceful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody wants to see dead Palestinians in Gaza. Nobody, including the Israelis. No matter what you may think of them, they genuinely try to prosecute their part of the war with as much concern as is humanly possible for civilian casualties. And one of the reasons I know that is because I have been in the situation control room on the borders of Gaza in 2014, sitting there with the Air Force generals watching in real time the drones showing real-time video over Gaza, seeing the drones give them indication this building is full of Hamas fighters. They know how many people are in that building. And then they'll send a drone over and drop an incendiary device on the building. It's called a knock on the roof. That causes people in that building to think it's a bomb. They've already sent them text messages, emails. They've taken over their television and radio stations, broadcast, and they've dropped leaflets and said, get out of this building. If you're anywhere near this building, get out. They drop that little incendiary device. Doesn't penetrate the roof, but it shakes up the building. And then they count the number of people to run out of the building. And when the number of people running out of the building equal the number of people they think are in the building, then they send, at that time, F-16s. They now use F-35s, but they were using the F-16, and that's when they would send them in to destroy the building. No nation on earth goes to that extent to save civilian lives. The U.S. doesn't. We're certainly not bloodthirsty, and we don't intentionally kill civilians. But we understand we did it in Iraq, we did it in Afghanistan, we did it in Vietnam, we did it in the first Gulf War. People got killed. And we regretted that civilians got killed. But this is something that I just find amazing. And Ilhan Omar doesn't seem to have a clue that is the Israeli position to try to do that. Hey, Mike Huckabee here. Listen, if you love your mom, apple pie, and being conservative, you know you ought to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and click the like button and show all the leftists out there that conservatives are thriving and patriotism is far from dead. Am I pandering too much? No way. I'm just getting started.